The Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross are America's two highest military decorations for U.S. military personnel who were recognized as heroes for war for each one that America was involved in, from the Civil War to the present day. Service members received the Medal of Honor and Navy Cross for their heroic actions in times of war. Today, the Woodbourne Manor neighborhood in Jefferson, Maryland, have named their streets after several recipients of the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross. While none of the recipients ever lived in Jefferson, the streets are named after these Medal of Honor and Navy Cross heroes so people can learn who these men were, and in order to commemorate their heroic actions taken in the times of war. These men were truly heroes in the Philippine-American War, World War II in the Pacific against the Empire of Japan, and the war in Korea. Their lives are important because they are part of the history of the United States Marine Corps. Upon arriving at the Woodbourne Manor neighborhood, you will first come to a street called Polar Drive, named after Chesty Puller. Lewis Burwell Puller, better known as Chesty Puller, was born in West Point, Virginia on June 26, 1898. He received his education at the Virginia Military Institute before dropping out and enlisting into the United States Marine Corps at the age of 20 in 1918. His career ran from World War I to the Korean War between 1918 and 1955. In 1937, Puller married the love of his life, Virginia Montague Evans, with whom he had 2 daughters and 1 son. In the 1920s, Puller was awarded the Navy Cross twice during his campaign in the Caribbean for leading several forces to put down rebellions in Haiti and Nicaragua. Puller later earned 3 additional Navy Crosses for his campaigns in the Pacific during World War II, as well as combat duty in Korea during the Korean War. In 1942, during the Guadalcanal campaign, Puller defended the Henderson airfield from being destroyed by the Japanese Air Force. Meanwhile, in New Britain, between December 26, 1943 and January 16, 1944, he was ordered to command 2 battalions whose commanding officers were killed in earlier battles and led them against the Japanese army with his 1st Marine. In 1944, Puller used aggression towards the Japanese on Peleliu while leading his men of the 1st Marine Division into battle. Puller's actions in the Pacific earned him his next 2 Navy Crosses. During the Korean War, Puller was awarded his 5th and final Navy Cross, as well as the Silver Star, for his successful gallantry of landing U.S. Marines on Incheon. The Silver Star is awarded to U.S. service members for gallantry against the enemy in times of war. In 1955, 2 years after the end of the Korean War, Puller retired with the rank of Lieutenant General and spent the rest of his life in his home state of Virginia, where he died on October 11, 1971, at the age of 73. Today, Chesty Puller is remembered for being the most decorated U.S. Marine for his heroic actions in the Pacific during World War II. The next street in the neighborhood is called Basilone Lane, named after John Basilone. John Francis Basilone was born in Buffalo, New York on November 4, 1916, and grew up in Raritan, New Jersey. After dropping out of high school and before joining the military, he worked as a golf caddy in his home state of New Jersey. Basilone's military service spanned between 1934 and 1945. In 1934, he joined the Army and was stationed in the Philippines until his discharge in 1939. In 1940, Basilone joined the Marine Corps and received his training in Parris Island, South Carolina. While in boot camp, Basilone learned how to handle a rifle and machine gun in order to prepare for war. After graduating from boot camp, he was stationed in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. In 1942, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Basilone was deployed to the Solomon Islands with the 1st Marine Division, famous for their campaigns in Guadalcanal, Peleliu, and Okinawa. Basilan was awarded the Medal of Honor for using machine guns single-handedly against the Japanese on Guadalcanal before reinforcements arrived, and the Navy Cross for actions on Iwo Jima. Basilan was able to take out several Japanese soldiers because the U.S. Marine Corps were armed with .03 Springfield bolt-action rifles, M1 Garand semi-automatic rifles, and more advanced machine guns that shot more rounds, while the Japanese army were only armed with Arisaka Type 30 bolt-action rifles, samurai katanas, and less advanced machine guns that shot fewer rounds than the American machine guns. After being awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on Guadalcanal, John Basilan was sent home and stationed stateside. Back in the States, between 1943 and 1944, the Marine Corps had Basilan sell war bonds to raise money for the ongoing war in the Pacific as a way to keep him from being sent back out to the war and killed. Hollywood also tried to get him into the movie business to appear in propaganda films to help raise money for the war. However, Basilan hated his job selling war bonds and asked his superiors for permission to return to the Pacific. The Marine Corps finally reluctantly granted Basilan's request and promoted him to the rank of gunnery sergeant. John Basilan was then assigned to train U.S. Marines in the 5th Marine Division in Camp Pendleton, California, before deploying with them to Iwo Jima. While training new Marines in Camp Pendleton, Basilan met the love of his life, Lena May Ricci, who was also in the Marine Corps, but working as a cook. They got married 6 months before his deployment to Iwo Jima. They were married July 10, 1944, at St. Mary's Star of the Sea Church in Oceanside, California, with their friends witnessing. Unfortunately, Basilan didn't live to see the end of the war. He was killed on February 19, 1945, while single-handedly taking out Japanese soldiers who were dug in the enemy trenches on Iwo Jima. Lena Basilan was devastated over the news of his death when the Marine Corps informed her of her loss, and she never remarried after his death. When she died, they buried her with her wedding ring. Today, John Basilan is remembered for his gallantry on the battlefield, single-handedly taking out Japanese soldiers in Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima. The next street in the neighborhood that you will turn into will be Boynton Drive, named after Gregory Pappy Boynton. Gregory Boynton, better known as Pappy Boynton, was born in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho on December 4, 1912. After his mother divorced his biological father, she decided from then on he would adopt his stepfather's surname, Hellenbach. Boynton attended the University of Washington from 1930 to 1934, where he majored and graduated in engineering and was a member of the ROTC program before joining the Marine Corps, serving between 1936 and 1947. After 22 years and during his time in college, Boynton didn't know the secret he was about to discover. When Boynton became a pilot in the Marine Corps, he discovered that his mother divorced his biological father shortly after he was born and changed his surname. Pappy Boynton resigned his commission as a captain of the Marine Corps in the summer of 1941, but reclaimed his position after the attack on Pearl Harbor when America entered the war. He flew several air raids against the Japanese during the campaign in the Solomon Islands, where he managed to shoot down 28 Japanese planes, for which he was awarded the Medal of Honor. However, after flying his air raids in the Solomons, Boynton was shot down and captured by the Japanese. He was taken to mainland Japan, where he remained in a POW camp until the end of the war. For the next 3 years, from 1942 until the end of World War II in 1945, Boynton remained in the Japanese POW Omoni camp in Tokyo before liberated by Allied troops in August of 1945. The Japanese POW camps were brutal towards the Americans and other Allied POWs, as many of them were starved, beaten, and some even executed before liberation. This was discovered by the Allied forces when the camps were raided. Many high-ranking Japanese officers were arrested, tried, and hanged for war crimes and crimes against the humanity in the Tokyo War Crimes Trials. The Tokyo War Crimes Trials were a series of trials where the Japanese soldiers and politicians were tried and executed for launching war against the Americans and taking land from China, Manchuria, Hong Kong, French Indochina, and many Pacific islands for their empire. At the end of World War II, Pappy Boynton was blessed enough to have lived and returned home from the POW camp. He was then recognized and awarded the Medal of Honor for his air raids during the Guadalcanal campaign in the Solomons. After the war, in 1958, Boynton published his autobiography, Baba Black Sheep, which was later adapted into a TV show in the 70s. He died at his home in Fresno, California on January 11, 1988, and is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, Virginia. Next, you will arrive on a road called Buckley Drive, named after Howard Major Buckley. Howard Major Buckley was born in Croton Falls, New York on January 23, 1863. He enlisted into the Marine Corps at the age of 33 in 1896. During the Philippine-American War, Buckley was one of 3 Marines who served with the 8th Army Corps of the United States Army. In 1889, Buckley was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions in the Philippine-American War. He was dishonorably discharged from the Marine Corps for misconduct in 1913 with the rank of gunnery sergeant at the age of 50, and he died on July 2, 1941. However, Buckley is remembered for his actions in the Philippines with the 8th Army Corps. These Marines were truly heroes in times of war. Their courageous actions in battle were fought for the freedom that we enjoy today. I hope you all have enjoyed your visit in Woodbourne Manor, and we've sparked an interest in you wanting to learn more about other recipients of the Medal of Honor.